I think the best antidote we have right now to all of the doom and gloom is empathy. And it's very simple. All we need to do is be intentional about it. I don't care what your age is. Think about one other person. And even if you do any of these with your children and you feel your own empathy is low, the best news is when you teach another, it actually strengthens you.
Hello and welcome to the Sunshine Parenting Podcast, where each week we talk about ideas for raising kids who become thriving adults. I'm your host, Audrey Michele. Here on the podcast, I share my experiences raising 5 kids who currently range in age from 16 to 26 and working with thousands more as a summer camp director over the past 3 decades. I'm the author of Happy Campers, and I frequently do workshops with parents, teachers, and summer camp professionals about social skills, connection, and happiness, topics I researched extensively for my master's in psychology. If you want tools for raising kind, optimistic, self-reliant kids who become thriving adults, you've come to the right place. Hello, Sunshine Parenting listeners, and welcome to episode 138. I'm so excited to bring you this conversation with best-selling author and parenting expert, Dr. Michele Borba. We're now in week 7 of ISO for the Rona here in California, and boy, this thing is dragging on longer than any of us ever expected. It's hard to know at this point when the shelter-at-home restrictions will be lifted, and when they are, we know that we're not going back to life the way we knew it before the coronavirus. There's a lot of change and uncertainty in our lives right now. I love sharing these interviews with you each week here on the podcast and just connecting about simple strategies for increasing connection and happiness. I've really felt compelled lately to also connect more one-on-one with those of you who just want a little bit of individual coaching and encouragement. If you'd like some more information about the coaching that I am offering for parents or families and for adolescents and children starting at age 10, check out my new coaching page on my website, which you can find at sunshine-parenting.com/coaching or access in the link at the top of this week's show notes. My one simple thing tip for this week is to make a short list of the little things that bring you some delight. One of my favorite quotes comes from Robert Brault. He says, "Enjoy the little things, for one day you may look back and realize they were the big things." This pandemic, which has wrought havoc on our schedules and our finances and our lives, gives us the opportunity to step back and really focus in on the little things that we really value in our life and that bring us some delight. Some of the little things that I enjoy and can even enjoy during this time of sheltering at home is a nice cup of coffee in the morning, reading a book in a comfy chair, getting together for family dinner and sharing our highs and lows, looking through old photos, eating a fresh avocado, talking to my kids, listening to a favorite song, and writing. What are some of the ordinary little things that you enjoy? What about your kids? This might be a fun family conversation for each of you to brainstorm your own short list of things that bring you delight, even on hard days. And now it's time for this week's interview. Dr. Michele Borba is a globally recognized educational psychologist and parenting expert whose goal is to strengthen children's empathy and resilience and break the cycle of youth violence. Dr. Borba has 24 books which have been translated into 14 languages. She's delivered keynotes and workshops to over 1 million participants, including a recent conference appearance at the American Camp Association conference in February of 2020, where I had the privilege of introducing Dr. Borba. Dr. Borba is an NBC contributor and has appeared 135 times on The Today Show, as well as on Dateline, Anderson Cooper, Dr. Phil, the NBC Nightly News, The Early Show, CNN, and more. And today, my friends, I have Dr. Michele Borba here at Sunshine Parenting. Welcome, Michele.
Oh, hello to you. I can't believe we're finally getting to have this chance to talk. Thank you.
Well, before we even started recording, I was just telling you that I just have been amazed at your magnanimity. Like, you are just the kindest person. And, I met you at the ACA conference way back. It seems like a different world ago, back before this whole thing started. And we got to sit next to each other at lunch, and I got to introduce you. And I wasn't even supposed to be at the conference that day. And they told me I could introduce you. And I was like, I'm changing my flight. I am staying. This is the hugest honor. And just meeting you, just sitting next to you and being in your presence, I was like, she is just, no wonder you're so awesome. So anyway, I'm your biggest fan, and I am thrilled that you are taking the time to chat with me today.
Oh, thank you. Let me tell you that there is a mutual admiration society because I adore you. So thank you.
Yeah, I've now latched onto you as my mentor. Just so
good.
I'm going to be calling you every so often to ask, okay, so what should I do next, Michele? So it's a strange time to be releasing books. I think that, people are all just kind of huddled in and people aren't buying anything. Finances are all crazy, but I want to encourage people to check out your new book. It's a must read for all of us. It is called Unselfie: Why Empathetic Kids Succeed in Our All About Me World. And it is a masterpiece. And it is, and I know you've written a lot of books. This one shares a lot of your experiences and stories meeting kids all over the world, even in refugee camps and different places. And you share some really good insights about the state of where our kids are now in terms of empathy and your direction for parents in this area. So can we just start by you just sharing, what is it like? What's the problem right now with kids?
The problem prior pandemic was that we were looking at a mental health disorder that was unprecedented. We're looking at 1 in 3 kids having some kind of stress levels that was just to the level that it was overwhelming. At the same time, we were looking at a lonelier generation that was backing pack and more distancing and very risk-averse. They were afraid to raise their hands. Their curiosity was nosediving. And all of those together, as a psychologist, major institutions were saying, yep, we got a problem. I'm looking at, so what's causing it? And I began to fly all over the world, which is my most fun thing in the whole wide world to do. And I began to see something that very concerned me. And that was, the lower the income of the kid, the happier the child. And then I began to look at, why is that happening? They don't have all that our children have. And then I kept looking at one study from the University of Michigan that said, I got to write this book. And it was by Sarah Conrath, who looked at 72 different studies and found only in America, our kids, American teens, were nosediving in empathy. And in fact, 40% drop in 30 years, while narcissism, I'm better than you, self-absorption, was going up 58%. That's disastrous. And when I looked at that, I began to say, well, what do we do about this thing of empathy? If there was anything wonderful, I began to look at science that said it's teachable. Our kids are hardwired to care, but we've got to nurture it, and the culture is removing it. Our parenting right now is all about the GPA and the rank and the score, so it puts empathy kind of down on a lower level, and all we need to do is flip it around, because we'll raise more successful as well as happier kids who are more prepared for life if we do.
Oh my gosh, that was such a great, you really can sum up the problem of the world right there. And as we've learned from a lot of research, when you are not feeling good, the best thing you can do is serve other people. And so that empathy thing too gets you outside of yourself. So even in a time like this, where everybody's sort of, the tendency would be to close up and say, keep my own stuff and, oh my gosh, we better hold on to what we have. I don't want to share with others. This is a time too where we can actually help our kids think about, hey, yeah, it's hard for you. Let's think about some other people. Even last night on the news, we were, there was a thing about the food lines. And, my kids, I said, yeah, isn't, how grateful we are to have that, how can we help with this situation? It's just, kids are so, in this spiral of, likes and who's the celebrity. There was something about, who's the San Diego State, Jean Twangy. She said that the kids, like now kids want celebrity and money. Whereas like in the 60s and 70s, it was like, we want to change the world, make it better. Is that still true, or are people coming around a little bit?
No, it is true. They also, when we look at kids and who their role models are, we looked at 20, 30 years ago, it was, I want to be a helper. I want to be a doctor, a teacher, a firefighter. Who is your role model right now? Somebody who's rich and famous. So I think all of those are kind of like the wake-up calls for the parent to go, whoa, it is a different world. June Cleaver is gone. So is Mayberry is dead. But it doesn't mean that we can't do anything about it. If we flip our parenting and weave in how we cultivate empathy, and it's doable. It's not another teacher. It's not another tutor. And it's not a worksheet. It's simple little things that we can do on a day-to-day basis will make a major difference in our children's lives. The most important thing, as I realize, is empathy is first made up of like 9 habits, and they're all cultivable. So if I just take 1 second and go, what are they? There's actually a sequence. You can't have empathy unless you can read somebody else's feelings. That's emotional literacy. Well, first thing our kids have been doing is looking down, not up. They've been disconnected. So right now, just start talking feelings more, because that's the gateway to empathy. The second one is moral identity. They need to feel inside their heart and soul that I'm a caring person and that matters. So talk about that in your home. That's what we stand for. Those are our values, because your kid will more likely to step in and do the right thing. You just mentioned the third one. That's perspective taking. When you see those food lines, it's the greatest question. How would you feel if that happened to you? What does that person need? You're flipping it so cognitively they're starting to feel another person's point of view. See, those are simple little things, Audrey. And if we keep asking those simple little things and weave them in, what we start doing is stretching our kids to think we, not me. And that's what helps our kids be able to fight the stress. Because here's another thing. When stress builds, empathy goes down and burnout comes up. We're now looking at a population of burned out, overwhelmed individuals on us all. And the best tip, that would be habit number 9. Don't think about yourself. Think about what you can do for others. Last night I was doing an NBC feed and they were saying, teens are so stressed and so worried. What's your best advice? I said, my challenge to each kid right now is think of one person who's struggling. Could be a friend. It could be somebody you may not be able to connect with face to face, but what's one simple little thing you can do to reach out and help that person? It'll not only get your stress level going down, it'll help that person. That's a win-win.
I love that. Well, I also told you that I've been doing this whole 30 days of kindness thing on Sunshine Parenting, and sort of encouraging that same thing both at my camp and in my emails and things, because for that very reason, during a time of high stress and high anxiety, the best thing we can do is stop thinking so much about our own stress and our own worry, and instead think about what can I do? Little acts of kindness, very small things. Like you said, I think, Michele, parents are really overwhelmed right now.
Yes, they are. And that's why we don't want to add one more huge thing to the plate. And it's simple little things, parent. If I would give you one bit of advice, don't try to do it all. You'll be overwhelmed. And your kids won't be so happy either. They'll go, I'm not listening to you can't listen to another webcast, Mom. But instead, example number 1, my girlfriend had one of the easiest ideas. They brainstormed kind deeds. Don't assume your kid knows them. In these days, don't assume it. You can just put a basket on your table with index cards, and on each index card every day, what's one more thing that we can do that's kind? Like smile, like say hello, like send a text to somebody who seems like they're down. Keep adding those so that you can pull them. Some parents for little kids, they take pictures of the kids doing them, and then they, blow them up and put it on a poster on the refrigerator. But my favorite rule in the book is called the 2 kind rule. If you do it every single day, you mandate it 30 seconds a day, and it's every day you're going to say or do at least 2 kind things to somebody. What are 2 kind things you could do? At the end of the day, at bedtime, let's review them, or let's talk about them at dinner. What you'll end up doing is helping your child not only develop a repertoire of kindness, but they turn it into a habit. So you no longer have to be the little kindness reminder. They'll automatically have it, and they develop what's called a caring mindset. They'll see themselves as a kind person, and the rest of their life, you'll go, I did something. That is the legacy.
Oh, I love that. So it's called 2 kind things.
2 kind things, or the 2 kind rule.
The 2 kind rule. Yeah.
The 2 kind rule. You can start it when your kids are 3.
Yeah, I love that so much. Oh my gosh, I'm starting it here with my kids who are 19 and 26.
Well, it's never too late.
No,
that's the other thing. Don't you worry.
Oh, and I've heard of families who like we like a lot of times we do sharing at dinner, and we'll do like highs and lows or 3 good things for my day. But I've heard of families who say, "What is something kind you did today?" Is there just daily check-in question?
It's a daily check-in question. And the reason for it is that our number 1 question right now is what you get. How many did you get right? It's all about the GPA. And what Harvard already told us is we're doing something major wrong. They interviewed hundreds of our kids, our middle school and high school kids prior to this epidemic. And what they asked the kids was, what's most important in your house? 80% of kids said it's all about the grade. Well, yes, it's important that you get the grade and you study. But it's also important to have a balance, because what you really want is a child who's got 2 things going for them, here and here. That's the kid who's going to be able to handle life well.
Absolutely. Oh, I referenced that study in my book, in the chapter on kindness, where they talked 10,000 kids, and the parents thought they were communicating to their kids that they wanted them to be compassionate, kind people, but the kids weren't hearing that. They weren't getting that. So that's a pretty interesting thing. So parents, remember, talk about it. If it's important to you, make sure your kids know that it's important to you and that you value that kindness and empathy.
Another one. I just have to your thoughts are making my brain go octane mode here. But one of the things that started all of this for me was actually, this isn't a dismal thing. I was working on army bases overseas, and so I did a sidetrack to go and visit Auschwitz. And when I left that, I was in a crying jag going, how can people be so cruel? But my silver lining was I turned, and there on a table was a book that changed my life, and it was called The Altruistic Personality. To this day, it's the most marked up book I have, because it was written by a Holocaust survivor named Samuel Alliner. To skip this up ahead, because it's all in Unselfie, how I came to visit all of this. But he was rescued by a perfect stranger, by Wawinda. His whole family went off to a boxcar and death camp and died. But Bawinda hit him. He's to this day alive because of her. And now he's saved his whole life to figure out what makes Bawindas. How come some people have this altruistic sense? It's not DNA. When he interviewed hundreds of rescuers, he found out 3 things in their commonalities. So hang in there, parent. Number 1, every one of them said, well, I watched my dad. I watched my mom. They always modeled calmness. So calmness, kindness, caring. The first thing is you've got to model it, because what happens is your kid begins to pick it up and see it. Second of all, it was important in our house. My dad always said, in this family, we're kind. It became that second piece that I said, your moral identity. You act how you see yourself to be. But the third thing that was interesting, it started with simple little ways to show and demonstrate kindness. My mom always had an extra bowl of soup for the people next door because they were homeless or destitute. Or my dad always said, we're going to go serve some meals or give some overcoats. It was that trajectory that you put all those together, and it became the kid's identity. And so when the moment came, they said it was impossible not to rescue. It was who I was and who I am. I had to step in.
That is beautiful. I've heard that a lot about in a lot of things, like that our identity is so much more powerful than anything else. So if we want our kids, for example, to be healthy, they need to identify themselves as a healthy person who does, who doesn't take things into their body that are bad for them. Like I always think about that too. I feel like a lot of communication to kids is don't do this, don't do that. But I think it's so much better and more powerful. And what we do at camp is we are kind. We're going to practice kindness. We have these themes around things we do want them to do and see themselves as. And it's really powerful because then they start saying, I'm a good friend.
You know, that's another point. You said that practice and then repetition, because a lot of times we make a mistake, but I told him to be kind yesterday. Why isn't he doing it today? It needs to be an ongoing process, easy, but ongoing ritual. Another thing is your words really do matter. You mentioned that, but praise can diminish or increase empathy. One of the simplest things to do is catch your kid with any kind of a character trait. But that was being kind, but then use the word because in your praise. That was being kind because you held the door opener for grandma. Did you see how happy she was? Urban Straub's work says when kids see the impact of the gesture, they're more likely to repeat the gesture until they become that kind-hearted kid. Simple little thing, just tuning up our praise the right way can make a difference. When I wrote Unselfie, my goal was to find the research that says you can do this. But the second thing was just find at least 300 simple ideas, age by age, that you can do at home. Don't do them all, but find a few that really matter in your own home that work for you and keep doing them, because that also creates lasting family memories and a legacy for your child.
Yeah. Well, Michele, don't you feel like in this time, you know, we can kind of sit at home and worry and watch the news 24/7, or we could take this time to think more about our family's values and use it as kind of a reset. I know that for me, it's been like that. Just, you know, there's more time to just rest and reflect. I'm noticing nature more. I'm just like, I feel myself slowing down because I'm forced to. And what an opportunity. I think families can view this as a time, you know, even if it's just like you said, the brainstorm bowl of index cards or the two kind things rule. I love just these simple things that we can do right now to come out of this better people, kinder people.
Yes. All we need to do is add the word intentional to our plate, because if we're intentional about it and then we find one little thing, here's one other little thing. You want a child who has moral identity? My favorite, Marilyn Perlin. That's a young girl, chapter 2, and who all the teachers kept saying, go interview that kid. If you're trying to figure out how kids become kind and caring, figure out how Marilyn was raised. So I finally tracked her down. She's now, you know, in a young adult, but I said, Marilyn, everybody said I had to interview you because they all wanted to know how you turned out to be so kind and caring. She laughs and says, it was how I was raised. I said, okay, do tell how you were raised. She says, I remember one thing, and it was so simple. And I was about 6. My dad called us all into the family room. My brothers were a little younger, like 4 and 2. We walked into the family room and there was chart paper and marking pens all over the floor. Dad said, have a seat. Mom popped popcorn. And my dad said, we're going to think about what kind of family we want to be and how we want to be remembered. Now, that alone was like, oh my gosh, Marilyn. She said, yeah. I said, what'd you do? The dad just said there isn't any right, but let's just start brainstorming and mom will write down the words. So we started writing all these words down. In a very short time, the chart paper was covered, just covered with all these terms like caring and kind and respectful, responsible and fair. And dad said, we can't be them all. So what's we going to be the most important? And we chose, put a circle around it, caring. Their last name was Perlin. So our mantra became the caring Perlins. I said, oh, how wonderful, Marilyn. How'd you remember it? This is the best part. She said, it was impossible not to. My mother must have said it 50 times a day. Remember, we're the caring Perlins. She dropped me off. Remember, we're the caring Perlins. Dad would do these high five packs. We're the caring Perlins. They said it so much, we became it. When she said that, I went, oh my gosh, that's all the work about conscience and my moral identity, all in one simple little activity. They said it so much, we became it. Repeat what you want your kids to be. Or even better yet, I challenge you, go ask your kids, what does our family stand for? And if it doesn't instantly come out, then you just need to reinforce it a little more. That's habit number 2, moral identity. But all of these habits, you got weaving them in. It's kind of like this little scaffolding trajectory. And in the end, you start when they're little and you keep on going, even when they're out of the house. And what you end up with is habit 9, the altruistic kid who wants to make a difference in the world. That's what our world needs right now. the kid who thinks weak, because we get through stuff together, not alone.
Oh my gosh. Okay, Michele, I'm like, you just preach it. You just like everything you just said. I'm like, this is amazing. And I feel like your book and this whole message and all these practices are going to help the parents as well. Like any adult. I mean, even if you don't have kids and you're listening, it's the same thing. If you're a young adult and you didn't have this in your home, you can still start it now. You can do it with your roommates and your friends. It's never too late to start this, or too early, like you said, and it will lift everybody up. And like you said, we need more people bringing positive changes to the world. That's what this world needs, is people who care and people who are looking out for each other.
Yeah. I think the best antidote we have right now to all of the doom and gloom is empathy. And it's very simple. All we need to do is be intentional about it. I don't care what your age is. Think about one other person. And even if you do any of these with your children and you feel your own empathy is low, the best news is when you teach another, it actually strengthens you. So your own empathy is going to go up yourself, as well as your kids, or as well as your friends, as well as your spouse. There's a win-win as well.
Absolutely. Okay, Michele, this has been amazing. I could just listen to you talk all day about the whole book, but we want people to actually get your book. I bet it's an audiobook too, right?
It is definitely an audio book. It's a Kindle book. It's a hardback page. The only thing I'm worried about the audio is I've had more parents say, I love it on audio, but I put it in my car. I was listening to it and all the kids in the back seat would go, you're not doing that one, Mom. You're not doing that one right, Mom. So just protect yourself and do it the way you want, but do one thing at a time. That's all it is about.
I think I'm going to get the audiobook too, just so I can listen. You read it, right?
Well, let me tell you something, little spoiler alert. I did the introduction and I cried so hard they had to hire somebody else. Recording it. The opening stories killed me off for remembering. It was some kids who just changed my life so much that I just couldn't go back there.
Oh my God.
Oh, they were just so wonderful.
So sweet. Okay. But you at least do the intro of it. And
I do.
Okay. We're going to close off our interview. Michele, this has been awesome having you on today. Thank you so much for your generosity and coming on Sunshine Parenting.
Oh, thank you. It has been a joy.
I am so thrilled to have had the opportunity to meet Dr. Michele Borba, hear her speak live, and now get to know her more. She is a remarkable thought leader, and I am thrilled to have had the opportunity to share our conversation about empathy and her new book, Unselfie, Why Empathetic Kids Succeed in Our All About Me World. I hope you found our conversation as inspirational as I did, and I hope you'll consider picking up a copy of Dr. Borba's book or listening to it as an audiobook. I know it will be meaningful for you and for your family. My favorite for this week is a blog post, an article that has sort of a morbid title, but has really great content. It was written by Bronnie Ware several years ago, and the post is called The Top 5 Regrets of the Dying. She's since written a book, but I have not read the book, but the article is really great, and she talks about her work in palliative care with elderly people who are on their deathbeds and what she learned from them and what their regrets were. And I really enjoyed the reminder to remember that at the end of our lives, when we look back about the things that we will regret, it helps us to figure out how to live now. And one quote from the article that I'll just share is this: "It all comes down to love and relationships in the end. That is all that remains in the final weeks. Love and relationships." I'll include a link in this week's show notes to Bronnie Ware's article, The Top 5 Regrets of the Dying. My listener question this week comes from Laura. She says, "Hi there. I listened to your podcast and joined your discussion of homeschooling a few weeks ago. I was wondering if you think sleepaway camps and day camps will happen this summer. I'd love to hear parents and camp directors on this topic. I'm so eager to have my kids have a normal summer, but it's feeling more and more likely that they won't. I'd love advice on this topic. Thank you, Laura." Here's how I responded to Laura's email. Hi, Laura. I really don't know what's going to happen this summer with camps. All camps will hopefully have more guidance soon, as the American Camp Association and CDC are coming up with guidelines. In following what other camps are doing, some have already decided not to operate this summer, some are modifying sessions and starting later or with smaller groups, and some are planning to operate their regular sessions. The majority, including mine, are waiting to make decisions until we get more guidance from authorities and see what's happening with the coronavirus. So much depends on what happens with the pandemic and when states allow larger gatherings. So I'm sorry I can't be more helpful. If your kids have a camp they attend, you could contact them directly and see what they're planning. A normal summer would be so nice right about now. Take care. Audrey. As always, you can find notes, links, and other resources related to today's conversation by visiting my website at sunshine-parenting.com. While you're there, be sure to sign up for my email list so that you don't miss out on any of the great resources I have available for raising thriving kids. If you enjoyed this episode, I'd really appreciate you sharing it with a friend. Please take a moment to give Sunshine Parenting a rating or review on iTunes or wherever you listen to podcasts. Let's end with a quote from my book, Happy Campers. Regardless of your child's age, remember that their best practice ground for positive relationships starts with you at home. Siblings, cousins, and close family friends are our kids' first friends, and by coaching our kids through the ups and downs of those relationships, we are helping them gain important social skills that will benefit them throughout their lives. Seeing ourselves as our kids' friendship coaches reminds us that our most important job as parents is modeling and teaching our kids about how to form positive relationships. It is from parents that our children first learn how to connect with others. I'm Audrey Michele. Thank you for joining me for the Sunshine Parenting Podcast. Join me again next week for more conversations about raising kids who become thriving adults.